Hey there! Welcome back to my channel. I'm Cybersecurity Meg, and I'm super stoked that you're here. Today we're going to be talking about the top resources you can use to pass your CISSP exam. I'm splitting this video into 4 categories. The first one, Miscellaneous, kind of the more obscure and new resources you can use. The second one, we're going to be discussing books. The third, videos/media, and the fourth, practice exams, if I can say that correctly. I have used most of these resources to recently pass my CISSP exam. However, if I haven't used the resource, I do have several colleagues or friends that did use the resource and can attest to how well the resource performs in preparing you for the exam. So let's get into it. As always, if you see me looking at my phone, it's just because there's so many resources I needed to list them out to keep us organized. Alright. Topic number 1, miscellaneous resources. And how lucky you are that my best resource and my favorite one to tell you about is number 1. So my top resource that I use to pass the CISSP exam, and I think you should too, is to join a Discord server that is dedicated to studying for the exam you're going to be taking. In my specific case, I joined the Certification Station Discord. It's free. There are hundreds and thousands of members who are all studying for the CISSP or other cybersecurity exams. It's a 24/7 study group where people are asking each other questions, discussing the exam objectives, and basically it's just like this amazing supportive study group where if you need help, if you need encouragement, if you need someone to be like, listen, get off the couch and go study, it's the perfect resource for you. My sub-point, or point 1.A to this, is that Adam Gordon, who actually helped in writing the CBK, the Common Body of Knowledge, he is active in this Certification Station Discord. You also have Thor from Thor Teaches. You have all these different professors who have, if not written the CISSP content or are teaching the content on videos or having their own platforms that are actively engaging in discussion with those who are studying for their CISSP. Adam Gordon also hosts free study sessions for the CISSP. So in January, he'll be starting a new 8-week program for CISSP studying, and he covers each of the 8 domains and hosts that, I believe, twice a week, and it's free. So literally, I don't think you could ask for a better resource than to have the person who literally wrote the book on the CISSP teaching you. So I'll link to that down below. Everything that I discuss, I'll link down below, so just check in the description. Alright, moving forward, again, still in the miscellaneous category, is the Sunflower PDF, and this is written by various authors, so I didn't, want to have to name out all of them, but this is another free resource that's online. I'll link to it down below. It's very concise in that it provides a lot of important factors like the frameworks and just specific things that you need to know. It doesn't go too in depth though, and it's a really great tool to use to review right before your exam. It kind of goes over some of the most important things that you should know or be aware of, so it's a really good refresher. Moving on to our second category, which is books, and I have 4 books that I highly recommend. The first one, as I'm sure if you've done any research you're aware of, is the Official Study Guide 8th edition by Sybex, which is a Wiley brand. I think I said that right. So this one is the ISC Squared backed book about the CISSP exam. Again, it's called the Official Study Guide. It is, I think, just under 1,000 pages long. I did use this book. I read it from the beginning to the end. I gave away all of my CISSP material to some of my colleagues and friends, though, who are studying. That's why I don't have it here to personally show you the resource in person. But nonetheless, this is a very concise, to-the-point book that covers allegedly everything you would need to know on the exam. That said, I included a few more books in this category because I feel that the OSG, which is Official Study Guide, I feel that this book is a bit lacking in depth. For instance, I don't think that it covers VPN very well. I don't think it covers Kerberos very well. So these are some major topics that are tending to be seen on the exam questions that I felt were a little bit neglected in the official study guide, which is why it's always a best practice to pick a main book that you're going to work off of. In this case, I chose the official study guide, and then to have a secondary book that you supplement your knowledge with. And generally, the second book that you supplement your knowledge with will either be the AllinOne, which is by Shon Harris, and I'll discuss that in a minute, or the CBK, which stands for Common Body of Knowledge, which was written by several authors, and that's just kind of like the holy grail of CISSP, but we don't recommend reading that. That is way too in-depth, way too much. It would just be overwhelming. So the first one recommended is the Official Study Guide, 8th edition by Sybex Wiley. The second one I recommend is the AllinOne CISSP book, and this is by Shon Harris. This is also the 8th edition. Just as a side note, Shon Harris did pass away. She was an amazing leader in cybersecurity, so I just wanted to note that. Rest in peace to her, because what a phenomenal human who's done so much for the field. I really genuinely enjoyed reading the AllinOne. I also read this from beginning to end. I found that it tells more of a story than the official study guide does. The AllinOne really kind of connects everything together and kind of interweaves between different topics, and I really enjoyed that. It kind of gave more practical scenarios that maybe you would use every day in the workplace, as opposed to the official study guide, which was a little bit more cut and dry for me. So if you prefer having a very, to the point book, the official study guide is probably for you. The AllinOne is going to be more encompassing, more in depth, but you also have to note that you need to be careful with this, because the AllinOne can provide too much information, too granular of detail. Specifically where I'm thinking about this is in Domain 4, which is networking. It goes crazy on cable lengths and all these random facts about cabling, which in my view is just not necessary for the exam. So that's why it's always a very good practice to choose one main book and then to supplement it with another. You can't just have one resource for the CISSP exam and expect to pass. You really need to diversify what you're studying from. So that brings me to book number 3, and book number 3 is The 11th Hour, which is a Syngress book. I believe Eric Conrad was one of the authors of this book, as well as several other very well-known authors in the field. And The 11th Hour is a very short and concise, to the point book that should be utilized. In my opinion, there are 2 best times to read The 11th Hour. One, if you're just starting off studying for the CISSP, it gives you a very high-level overview of what you can expect to be studying over your journey of attaining the certification. Or option number 2, a lot of people read The 11th Hour a few days out from when they're planning to take the exam, just as kind of a way to refreshen things and go over some of the major topics. So The 11th Hour, short, I think it's only 300 pages maybe. Most people that I've spoken to about it, I have not personally read it myself, but most people that I spoke to about it, they said they read it in either 1 or 2 days, so it's a pretty quick read. And again, this is best to use either when you're first beginning your CISSP studying or when you're ending your CISSP studying. That leads me to the 4th book that I have written down, which is Eric Conrad's CISSP Study Guide. This is a shorter version of the official study guide, I would say. I think it's 600 or 700 pages as opposed to being 1,000 plus pages. I do own this book, and I did skim over it. I didn't read it beginning to end like I did the official study guide or the AllinOne, but I have heard fantastic reviews on it. A lot of my colleagues and friends who have passed the exam did use the book. However, you have to be very mindful that it's missing things, right? So you need to be cautious of not just using this one resource and attributing that to how you're going to completely study for the exam. Obviously, something that is 300 pages longer than what ISC Squared backs as being the official study guide for the exam it's going to be lacking a little bit of depth or some content, and that's why I would recommend, if you're choosing to use Eric Conrad's CISSP study guide as your main resource, you should be supplementing this with another book. So that covers books. Of course, there are a lot more. There are many, many books on the market about CISSP. These 4 that I just mentioned are simply the tried and true that we tend to see over and over, and people are really appreciating the content because it tends to be seen on the exam. So my next category is videos, and this is becoming a very popular category over the last few years. I have 5 different materials to discuss in this category. So if you enjoy videos, this is a category for you. Number 1, I have the destination certification mind maps on YouTube. Again, I'll link to all of these resources down below, but the destination certification mind maps, basically, I believe it's Rob Witcher who makes these. He chooses a topic. For instance, I've watched this mind map on Domain 5, and it was like SAML and SSO and Federation and what have you. And he kind of breaks down the overarching topic about it into more granular bits and shows you how it all fits together, how it all makes sense. And for me to be able to kind of see it all broken down but then put back together, it really kind of helped me in my brain to understand how everything kind of ties in and relates to one another. So Rob Witcher, his YouTube channel has a lot of amazing, straight to the point, beneficial information. I believe he's still building out his repository of videos, so he's still filming, on a couple domains and filling in on some of the major topics. But that said, there does already exist quite a few very resourceful and helpful videos, so I would definitely check him out. The second resource is Thor Teaches videos, and Thor, he's a great guy. I speak with him in the Certification Station Discord, like I've mentioned, and he obviously has his own video series for several different cybersecurity certifications, and I believe even exams like the PMP and whatnot. So nonetheless, I believe he has these posted on 2 platforms. So 1, you can get them on Udemy, or 2, you can get them on thorteaches.com. And if you know anything about Thor, super down-to-earth, super nice guy, explains things very well, extremely knowledgeable. So if you need a video resource that's going to walk you from domain 1 through domain 8, and it's going to give you very solid information that you can kind of like fall back on, Thor Teaches is a great resource for that. He walks you literally from the beginning to the end. My third video resource that I wanted to comment about is Adam Gordon on ITProTV. Again, Adam Gordon is a gentleman who helped write and edit the Common Body of Knowledge, and brilliant mind, also in the Certification Station Discord, most helpful, kind guy, and he is partnered with ITProTV.com. He has videos. You can do either, I believe, an accelerated version or an extended version, and obviously the accelerated version is less time and the extended is more time, but you can pick and choose between what you would prefer. Obviously, if you do the accelerated version, probably you're just kind of filling in some knowledge gaps, whereas the extended one's going to provide more information and go more in depth. So he does provide domain 1 through domain 8, the entire overview of what you would need to know for the CISSP. That brings me to resources number 4 and number 5, which are both by Kelly Handerhan. Woo, Kelly! So Kelly Handerhan, for her CISSP study series, it's located on Cybersecurity, and I believe as of right now you can get a free 1-month trial for Cybersecurity. Nonetheless, Kelly is funny, she's engaging. Her series on Cybersecurity does cover all 8 domains from beginning to end. The feedback that I have read about Kelly, though, and I've watched a lot of her videos myself, is that they don't go as in-depth as necessary for the exam. So as I've said many times before in this video, make sure to supplement your main resource with another couple of resources. That way you're filling in the gaps of what you're missing. And Kelly, super engaging, funny, has a great sense of humor. I like the way that she speaks and presents herself. I like the way that her videos are organized. So I highly recommend checking her out on Cybersecurity. And then video number 5 is also by Kelly Handerhan, and this is actually a free video on YouTube, which is her top 10 tips to why you will pass the CISSP exam. And this video should be watched the day before you take your exam, and it should be watched again while you're driving or taking the bus or whatever to the exam center. This video is so impactful, it's so important, it really gets you in the right mindset to take the exam. She is an expert in the field, she's brilliant, so she knows what she's talking about, and in this free YouTube video, she really shares, some motivational tips to help you get into the right mindset and frame of mind to walk into the exam with confidence and to be prepared. So that leads me to our very last category of CISSP resources, and that is practice exams. Woo! Because we all know that just reading or watching videos really isn't enough when it comes to this exam. I mean, maybe it was for you, but it wasn't for me and for most people I know. So practice exams are helpful in that they kind of show you where your weaknesses are, and that's what I feel practice exams for the CISSP should be used for, because I will be completely upfront and honest with you. There is no practice exam that exists on the market today that is going to replicate the structure of questions, the syntax, and overall the general sense of how questions are going to be asked on the actual exam. That is something that the entire community of who has taken the CISSP exam agrees on, is that there's not any resource right now that completely emulates what you're going to see on the exam. So that said, I believe practice exams are important because they show you where you're weak. They help you identify, oh, I didn't perform too well in domain 2, so I really should go back and review that information. And the two biggest resources that I use both of these myself and seem to be a recurring theme to use are, one, the Boson exam simulator, and this is online. What I really like about this exam simulator is that you can pick and choose to emulate a full-length exam. So if you want, you can take a full exam and it'll time you, and you won't see the answer to any questions until you hit end and you're done with the entire exam. Then it's going to go through and it's going to give you scores per domain, and it'll help you kind of identify your weaknesses. Now, the one downside to this exam simulator is that there are barely any questions for domain 2 or domain 6. So, if you are taking these practice exams and you find that you're scoring 50% accuracy in domain 2 or domain 6, don't let yourself get beat up over it. Don't feel disappointed or discouraged by it. Chances are your exam you just took only had 2 total questions on domain 2 or domain 6, and you missed one of them, so that gives you a 50% accuracy in that domain. And that's one of the main issues I have with Boson. Another issue I have with Boson is that it gets more technical than I feel the actual exam is. So it gets a little bit too granular in details, for my opinion. However, the pros to Boson are that it does generally help you identify what domains you're doing weak in, and the most important part about Boson is the answers to the questions. It explains why the right answer is right and why the wrong answers are wrong. And this is the biggest beneficial part about Boson are the explanations they provide to their questions. They give you a page number of where you can refer to back in the OSG. They give you just really a thorough, in-depth explanation, and reading through them really helps solidify your knowledge and fill in the gaps. The last resource I want to discuss is also another practice exam, and these are the official practice tests, which are by Sybex and Wiley, the same author that has the official study guide. The official practice test is, it's a physical book, and I really enjoyed it because you can take 4 full-length practice exams that include all domains and kind of emulate the real exam, or you can take practice exams per domain. And then it provides, obviously, in the back of the book, the answers and explanations. I personally felt that these questions in the book were way too easy compared to the actual exam. But what I did enjoy is, one, It's really helped kind of solidify my foundational knowledge for the exam. It really tested, like, do you know what a VPN is? Do you know what Kerberos is? Do you know why block differentiates from blah 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 in cryptography? So it really helps you kind of identify your areas of weakness in that. And then I also enjoyed that the answers they do provide in the back of the book are pretty detailed. They're not as detailed as Boson, but they're good enough, and they point to the page number, I believe, within the book so you can reference back to it, that I felt that it was really helpful to me. So yeah, those are some of the top resources that you can use to pass your CISSP exam. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it to be useful. Within the next few weeks, I'll be publishing a video about my study schedule for the CISSP exam that will kind of overview how quickly I read things, what domains I studied in order of, and just my personal preference on how I did things. That might be helpful for you. So I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next video. Ciao!